And so I just thought it'd be a nice opportunity for us to check in over the past year. If we can cast our minds back even half that far, I'll be impressed. But yeah, the kind of the financial year, April to April, where we've ended up having 4 Horizon scans in that time. It'd be interesting to see how those boards have evolved, and I'll make sure that that's part of our imagery on the report. And we'll start with the fact that, well, it's quite a significant change, really, isn't it? We've got a new name and a new brand in that time.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to sort of cast my mind back to the fact that all of that changed, but how, for me, overall, Karma Lives really does feel embedded within a relatively short time frame. I don't hear people really referring to BizNet anymore. It's come off most of our literature now.
I think it's a definite positive. I think it just fits so much better with what we do, and I think the feedback that we've had is very affirming of that. That it does suit. It's a much more fitting name to describe the service. I did notice that when we were at Sandy Park at the mentally healthy schools,
Yeah.
there were about 3 or 4 professionals that said, "Oh no, I don't know you at all." And then when I started describing what we are, and then we used to be called BizNet, they went, "Oh yeah, I know BizNet." So there were some that hadn't caught up yet. So it was really
That's
helpful
useful.
doing the Sandy Park gig. It was
Yeah.
good.
And what I noticed on that day is
Yeah.
how I felt, so it was really easy and confident to then go. It felt really quick to go, and here's who we work with. Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it really cut through as to what that really meant. And huge thanks to you as well. I think that term therapeutic mentor in itself was like a new kind of concept for me when we were first trying to really get to grips with what we did. And I love the way we've still managed to keep that core one-to-one bespoke service.
Yeah.
And that's the therapeutic edge to it, isn't it? The amount of people that I hear that after that first session, when I say, "What's your takeaway comment?" and they say, "Oh, it felt like we were really listened to," and you get it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that goes such a long way. That sometimes that's just a
Yeah.
15-minute call, sometimes it's that
Yeah.
first hour of meeting, and it tends to be the first bit of commentary I get from most families that
Yeah.
they felt listened to.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a therapeutic mentor is, isn't it? It's someone
Yeah.
that's there, they share experiences, um, and it's a bit of a shift away from kind of behavior consultant, which now that terminology, well intended at the time, but it feels a bit, and this is how you support and manage behavior. And I do that with my finger, a bit managing.
Mm.
Whereas a therapeutic mentor, it's
Yeah.
just experience sharing. And I this whole rebrand has completely shifted the way I quickly pick up that phone call. And I'm here, I share experiences. I might have some ideas and tips to share along the way and some genuine kind of training in the background, but I've learned so much from the young people and the families that come to us. And it kind of flows from there. It's been really nice. I think because we are part of that brand, that new name, it flows a lot quicker for me to then share that with people who might not know us at all at that first stage. And most families that are coming through to us through referrals, through early help or social services, they haven't heard anything about us.
Mm.
Some are lucky to kind of have the website passed their way by a family intervention team or something like that. But generally that first 10-15 minutes is I'm here, I'm listening, how can I tailor us? But I'm also having to sort of do a quick, it's kind of like a sales pitch, but I don't want to sound like a salesman. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
really get across the essence of what we're about in
Yeah.
that time. And that name, Karma Lives, it's a lot easier to do that than corporate BizNet. Even
Yeah.
the imagery's changed so much, hasn't it? It feels a lot more
Yeah.
natural. And we talked a lot about how we wanted to make it look.
Yeah.
That's jogged my memory. We even got, it was a parent that you were working with, wasn't it? That AdoptStar that got us into
Um,
the world of
yeah.
marketing way back then.
Yeah.
Oh, that feels
Yeah.
ages ago.
It does. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, it does. Yeah. And that was really helpful, wasn't it? Just them sort of alongside our branding journey and not like wholly, they didn't take on the website side of it, but it did
Mm.
help with us evolving our name and imagery for the logo and stuff like that. So they're really helpful. I think as well, I do wonder, some of our families, sometimes they've got so much going on that they may have been told by early help or social service about us, but they might have so many appointments going on
It's true.
that then they can't remember by the time we've contacted them, or the purchase order's gone through, and so it's easier for them to just say, I don't really know who you are, rather than getting in a bit of a pickle and mixing us up with somebody else. And but it is, I think, the name therapeutic mentor, because we're not, it does feel like a consultant would tell you, do this, do this, do this, do this, and this is what you're getting wrong, and it's all about behavior. Whereas a therapeutic mentor feels more like, I'm alongside you, let's work at your pace in a way that is catered for you. So if you need more visual, we do more visual. If you need more chat, we do more chat. If you need more literature sent to you, we'll do more literature. And that just whole pace and stylizing around the client, but mentoring them so that they're elevated, so they become more capable and understand of themselves and their child or their children. That's a mentor, isn't it? Rather than a
Yeah, and what I've noticed in the last couple of months, surprisingly, is some families that I worked with 6, 7, 8 years ago have recently started to get back in touch with me with some one-off sessions.
Wow.
And that's been really encouraging, not because suddenly they're in absolute crisis. I was like, oh crikey, why are you getting back in touch with me? Have we made a difference in the past? But actually, it was families wanting to use me as a sounding board.
Yeah.
That they just needed that check-in with a mentor,
Yeah.
and have that sort of dedicated space and headspace to do it. And yeah, I must admit, I was trepidation of like, oh God, what's gone wrong? But actually, no, it was more, they're at a different junction in their life, our young person. And a crossroads between being parents of now older children or young adults now, where what is your parental role? It's this like handing over of independence, but still young people that need the scaffold. They need that regulatory support around them when they're taking on new problems. So that was really welcome to know that they get back in touch with us as Calmer Lives now, rather than BizNet of the past. So that was a nice kind of add on, and I think that's helped in terms of their families that have used our new booking system quite well, because they can use that ad hoc and check in, and they've got the capacity to do that. So it's worked well for them. But I've noticed across the year, despite our best laid plans that there'd be this all singing and dancing booking system, we're talking about families that are still in crisis and need the admin taken care of for them. So I more and more, I'm back to using the calendar as it was before and booking in their 7 sessions and trying to get them into a block to do that. So yeah, the technology's there that we can cater and be flexible in different ways. We put a lot of effort into booking systems and the websites. But interestingly, for some, no, you've just got to put that extra attention into it on that side.
Yeah, they want you to do the block booking. They want you to send the confirmation email with all the dates laid out, and that's what they need. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think that in itself is an indicator of where some people are at. Yeah, and also though, interestingly, it's a small minority, but that I've just got a few who opted to do the self-booking online, but they've been very inconsistent.
Okay.
And it's almost like that can be tricky because that's the way they've got set, but then it's not necessarily the best outcome for them. If they'd have booked more consistently, I think we've had a bigger impact with it's just that a couple to yeah.
They can have that kind of scheduling dedicated to their week,
yeah.
and go from there. I've noticed it's been a positive in terms of the early help triage process, I think is improved this year. Um, my initial worry is because other families were doing kind of programs like Autism Us and other more sort of generic training around neurodiversity. I was initially concerned that that would mean that they wouldn't transpire, that they would then get that more specialist support from
Mm,
us. That was my
yeah.
initial worry. But actually, it's
Mm,
early help have been really encouraging. They've seen it as a triage process, and that we do have that added value to then put that training
mm,
into everyday practice. Like you say, it needs that weekly check-in period for them to really
mm,
embed a
mm,
new habit or idea.
yeah.
And because then it's come from the parent as to which idea we can
Mm,
present with them to put into their
mm,
person-centered part of it, it's more likely than we
mm,
see a kind of a behavior change with that. So yes,
mm,
initially worried that we weren't going to see as many referrals because there was more training out there by other providers.
mm,
But I think because we've got such a good relationship now with that early help team and they really get it,
mm.
we we've actually seen really consistent numbers, haven't we, in the last 3 months now from early help.
I do wonder, just thinking on the spot now about that, whether that was part of why we perhaps had a period of time with a bit of a lull where they rolled out this Autism and Us training
Possibly,
program. So it's caused a bit of a delay impact. But now those, because so most of them now that have come through have done those courses and still
yeah,
need that extra bespoke support. So maybe now it's kind of caught up. I don't
yeah,
know.
an interesting one to keep
Mm,
listening out for to kind of make sense of that one.
yeah.
Take my train of thought. It takes my train of thought to the amount of marketing and new skills we've been adopting along the way. I think I used the word. I've come across it a lot recently. Stretched. It
Talk
has
about
stretched
stretch.
me this year. I felt stretched this year.
I felt stretched too.
Jennifer has felt like unbelievable, isn't it? That how much stretch there's been, but obviously, yeah, for the best overall, isn't it?
Yeah.
But there have been moments where I've been very indebted to some incredibly skilled people around me. It's been really encouraging to recognize what skills we have within Cedar when it comes to marketing. Having Ren still on board with us to check in
Yeah.
and keep that direction. But yeah, for people that maybe prefer that one-to-one, I'm just a mentor over here. And now we've got pockets of selling ourselves and selling a service which is you want to big up yourselves, but at the same time you don't want to come across as a salesman. We
No.
want to be that mentor and we're listening and we're alongside you. We're not pushing aware, as it were. But that has meant that July last year, 2024, we officially became Carmelize when we were able to launch our own website. It had stayed independent to the Cedar main one, but that has actually given us a lot more independence. I think it's a lot easier to maintain and now keep it current with any changes. It was really helpful for us to move away from some slightly developing trust introductions that were a bit vague. We understood it, but the general
Mm,
population didn't. So being able to say
no.
we work with young people, their families, neurodivergent adults, and professionals, it's made it a lot easier, like we say, at those kind of events and online and in our social media to say this we cater for.
Yeah.
And that's really then helped. I think it's made it a lot easier for people to understand what we do
Yeah.
on that
Yeah.
side of things.
Yeah.
Go on then, Jennifer. Is there a top most stretched moment in your skill set?
Uh,
I'm trying to segue you
right.
coercively onto this. But
Yeah.
let's celebrate Neurodiversity Week and this incredible song that you put out.
Well, lots of stretch in there. Massive stretch for me personally, in that I had this idea. I think by the time it finally got the go ahead, probably sat on it for a year and a half. So it took me an immense amount of, don't know, thinking it through. Do I want to expose myself? before making that decision. And then every time I spoke about it, it was a stretch for me. And then
That was within between us. That was in the Cedar team, wasn't it, and beyond.
yeah, yeah, every time. And then reaching out to find a producer, a music producer, that was a stretch. It wasn't, it was very amazing making the song. More comfortable, it was a surprise, more comfortable than I would have expected because I've not been doing music for a long time. But going in the studio and doing that, yeah, it's a bit of a stretch. But the marketing, very much a stretch for me. Standing up at Sandy Park and talking to people, massive stretch for me. I still find some of our, not all of them, some of our SLTs and our what's the other one? The psychological safety
Yes.
type training.
Yeah.
The
And you've got a role now, haven't you, is to potentially be
the feedback
a feedback
champion.
mentor,
So I'm the
champion.
deputy. Yeah. So I'm not used because my role is Calmer Lives and very much an independent sort of practitioner role. And I think because of my previous role to this job, when I come to SLT, I don't know, I'm growing there. I'm growing as a person to try and put more in there, but that's still a bit of a stretch for me. That I'm like, do they really want to hear what I want to say? So I've been told people do, so I'm going with that.
So
But it's still a
between us,
stretch.
we've put and we're still continuing to learn. We're still continuing to put ourselves in slightly uncomfortable positions because of
A
change
lot.
and uncertainty a lot. But
Yeah.
this is where it comes into the sort of the report side of things. Has it been worth it?
Yeah.
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 You used this expression to me a couple of weeks back that kind of the seeds are starting to shoot, aren't they? It's
Yeah.
spring,
Yeah.
and genuinely we are starting to see that materialize into a more consistent pattern of referrals coming in.
Yeah.
We're seeing them come through. Obviously, our cohort of early help is there. Social services, they are starting to start to spread the word between social workers. There is definitely word of mouth going between various parts of Devon, and they're better understanding us when I've been describing what we do to them, and they are materializing into some referrals, which is great. Uh, there are now some opportunities that we can do some work with child in need families, so that higher level. They're coming with pots of money from anywhere from £500, and I have one at the moment that I was able to provide the quote, and I was able to quote 24 sessions across a whole year, and that's very much, we're about halfway now with that family. So we started with that intense kind of week to week as we would do with early help, and now it's tailing off into being able to do some family therapeutic work with them on a fortnightly basis and involve one of the young people. So that's got a really nice sense of actually being able to work long term with a family. And they have definitely seen impact, just from understanding the behavior, from a starting point. And I'm really hope those kind of the projects are the ones that we can get our teeth into, more of ongoing, because it allowed that multi-agency work and be funded. So I was in a school a couple of weeks ago working with the TAs and the class teacher, extending what we've learned in the family and seeing where that relates to their school environment, and get these two parties talking a bit more effectively.
Nice.
So I'm definitely seeing that one is in the next couple of months I'll be writing that in its own case study report, because that's the one social services are going to need to be reading up on, as a good outcome. It's already a good outcome, and it will improve as they go, I think. Um, so that's with one mind of where we've seen ourselves grow, services better understand us, materialize into some more referrals, and not just be confined to the short-term projects, but ones that can actually move on. Jennifer, you've had a number that have actually, what did change this year is Early Help changed it to a £400 package, and that's a one-off payment now for families. They can't apply to us or any other services. But Jennifer, I think you've had a number of families actually that then go on to use their direct payments or self-finance with you, haven't you? And actually, that's something I think we've been better at selling from the start, isn't it? We've got this window of opportunity to make a start, but we don't want to abandon you like other services may.
Yeah.
And I think you've had quite a few come back to you, haven't you, that way?
Yeah, quite a lot. Some over quite a significant length of time, they just, it's helpful for them. So they decided it's helpful to spend that money on our time and use the sessions well. Also, sometimes is that support around specific events or specific things that they've got going on, like a DLA application or something like that, and us just being that evidence in that they need just to bolster their application. And just so it's they definitely that's the nice thing, isn't it, that early help can get them started, and then they can really feel the value of what they're getting, and then they invest in it further. So that's really nice. I'm also thinking for you, Howard, how you've had to do so much in the sense of change, like the whole branding and the promotion side of things. That must have been pretty immense for you.
There's been some aspects of it I've really enjoyed. I think the fact that we're both quite creative souls at heart. I did get to control a little bit of the website side of things. You kept welcoming ideas, and I was like, oh, but I get to have a doodle and some creativity. So I really enjoyed that side of things. Um, it was a push, the social media side of things, but again, I get to be a bit creative with that. Now it's just maintaining and keep welcoming more ideas about how to keep pushing and promoting ourselves on that side of things. It's nice to know that there are horizons throughout the year, events like autism awareness that we're suddenly aware it's next Tuesday, so we're going to get onto that. And bringing kind of a confidence to involve people like Craig Bowden, and some of the families we're working with are saying, how can we go about volunteering with you, that we've worked with in the past. I think it's going to be more about the year ahead, about how do we utilize the people we're coming into contact rather than all this pressure just being on us to really sell ourselves. I feel like there's going to be a sort of an organic process from here on where it's a bit more than just that word of mouth, but a concerted effort, but it's not just us two doing it. And utilize some other expertise as we go. Which brings me into my mind, I've felt really positive about being welcomed into the Family Minds Partnership, which is a collection of organisations predominantly in East Devon, but it is for the Devon area, that they're always welcoming new services to be part of these organisations. And we're even talking about a kind of a sort of a hall, a kite mark, to say we've really signed up to this group. And this has been a project all about well-being and mental health. So we're organisations that really want to promote that for young people and their families across the region. Our area and our niche, as it were, is to really champion that for neurodivergent young people. So it's already materialized into the fact that we've been welcomed in, and we get a kind of every couple of months we get to network and be part of peer mentor support in these groups. They've been a kind of combination of face-to-face and online. And there's some genuine expertise in not only how do we sort of develop some of our services and work with young people and their families, but I think more importantly, these are people that we're learning it has to be a concerted partnership effort so that we can tap into relevant funding opportunities. And how do you go about that? So there's, again, it's tapping into that expertise and that peer mentorship that I think will improve us in the way we're, again, both the marketing side and what kind of structures do we want to be using to do that. So I just see that as I've learned more from them than I've given so far, but I'm sure there's going to be a kind of a knock-on effect, isn't there, in terms of what we can then offer to these other people that might have not the experience and the lens that we're using in some of these sessions. And it feels like every time we do suggest an idea or a way that we've worked in the past, it's been well received. So that's certainly, we've just putting together our horizon scanning for the first quarter of the new year, and I think that's going to play a big part of the way we're projecting and tapping into the kind of the latest source of NHS kind of funding. It's going to help give us some leverage into that, and we're developing a trust and adjust project at the moment, aren't we? And that one will particularly target attendance and well-being of young people that are struggling to attend in their education setting. And I think that one's we're well accomplished in that area, but we're really tuning and refining what that's going to look like ongoing. So that's lovely. That I couldn't imagine we would have had such a refined package around that maybe a year ago. So that shows that development cycle to where we're at. We're still having to come up with new and revised ideas, but I know what our core now is around that therapeutic mentorship and why we're bespoke in that area. But it's different ways of not just different ways of selling it, but just generally giving it a why we have to do it in this way to have an impact.
Yeah, definitely.
And we are having impact. I'm very aware that as a financial year, it's not been great in terms of being sustainable in the number of referrals. It's the first year in I think that we haven't broken even in that respect. A huge part of that was we didn't have the Developing Me funding that used to offset our staff wages. And that's been a huge challenge for us of not getting those kind of grants in anymore. And so we're going to have to look maybe at more of a private sector about how we get sponsorship to help balance that out. But I feel it's horrible making a loss across the year, but I feel very welcomed by the trustees and CEDA as a whole that we are seen. I've been really reassured about how we are value to what we do as an organisation and Calmer Lives. And that's because of those impact stories. And it's been a year of putting full attention about how we capture those, being more routine in getting those email anecdotes and storing them, and then finding ways that they're not just coming from parents and carers, but we've also found ways of capturing young people's experiences. And in our report, we'll also be sharing that they are coming from partner organisations, people like social workers, family intervention team workers, and also sort of those statutory funders that have been using us. And it's been so helpful to get their view on things because we are needed. We are needed. So of course we want to be doing that as much as we can to make sure that we're sustainable. But I'm just so pleased to come away from a year of just being reminded about how much we are needed and valued across not just our service, but obviously the welcome comments that we get that feedback from such a wide area. And we're getting the seedlings of being beyond Devon now. We are very much obviously an online service alongside the face-to-face, which we love, but we are more broad, that we can access the outside world of Devon now. So we are getting some commentary from some families in Bristol, Cornwall. I know you did quite a bit of work from families in Cornwall, didn't you, in the past year?
Yes, still got one going. So I've had 3 from Cornwall this year, and one still continuing one-to-one with the young person. So we can reach further than Devon for sure.
Can reach further than Devon. I better wrap it up there. I'm not sure who's going to watch all of that for that amount of time, but I hope we've been stretched this year. I can't even imagine a year ago having the confidence to chat online and have our check-in sessions and be confident enough just to go, wow, it's out there, and there's something about that approach that actually it's what we've had to sell ourselves as part of this project, haven't we, and make it very personable. So that's the idea of the report this year. It's personable. Feel free to view whoever it goes out to.
Lovely.
Super.
Thanks, Howard.
No, thank you. I hope that's